You can have a great subject, beautiful light, all the right gear, and your portraits can still feel like something's missing. That's because the difference between a photo that feels flat and one that actually pulls you in is composition. So today I'm sharing 7 composition tips you can use at your next photo shoot to help elevate your photography. Today's model is Yasmin, Lidija is on makeup, and Dan is filming the behind the scenes. The first thing I like to look for in a location to create great portraits is depth. I knew I wanted to use this beautiful green ivy wall, but rather than just angling myself to face it perfectly so that's all we had in the background, I decided to shoot from a side-on position. That way we're able to get that sense of depth because in the background we have the location both close to the subject on the left-hand side, but then the location melts away into the distance on the right-hand side.
And then we'll do some like facing, I love those, towards me, yeah. I feel like it would look cool if we did like kind of moody, punchy ones.
I also love keeping an eye out for color, so in this case there was a little branch with some purple flowers that I decided to incorporate into these first few photos.
And then we'll go down a little bit more into the greener area. Well, there's like a little bit of sun if you step out this way. Yeah, just there, that's cool. Oh, that looks so nice.
Composition tip number 2 is to utilize your location and angles as a photographer to help make the photos tell more of a story. This is super helpful if you have someone in front of your lens who isn't actually super comfortable taking photos. This way, you're doing most of the work as a photographer by changing up your angles and the look of each photo you're taking, rather than relying on your subject to come up with poses. Yasmin is a professional, of course, but if you have someone that isn't moving around as much, this is such a great way to be able to capture a variety of photos without putting too much pressure on the model. Even though I started in this location at first getting those photos with depth and the purple branches, I also made sure to move around and make use of a few different angles as well. Sometimes I'll place Yasmin against a completely simple, clean background where you only see ivy in the frame. This makes her the main subject of the photo since there aren't any other major details that distract you in the shots. Aside from the minimal green background, I also sometimes intentionally include more of the details like the trees, the pathway, and background textures, as this is what helps add more of a story to your photos that tie all the shots together. Composition tip 3 is to make sure you don't forget to use your perspectives. What I mean by that is you don't always want to stay at eye level the entire time because your set of photos is then going to look the same and look a bit boring.
I feel like you could even like look away like down the street would be cool, yeah. And then maybe like over your shoulder as well, a couple.
While eye-level portraits can be the most flattering look for most people, I think it's still important to sprinkle in a few different angles to make your final set of images look more dynamic. One that I really like to do is shoot from a low angle, especially when you have an interesting location to work with. In this case, I really liked how that house was in the far background as it helped add a different texture to the background of my photo and a little bit of extra color too, rather than having everything in the frame be green. One of my secrets, so tip number 4, is when it comes to shooting against a flat location like this wall, is to always ask your subject to step slightly away from the backdrop rather than standing right up against it. The physical distance helps create depth between the background and foreground and helps stop distracting textures and lines from awkwardly cutting through your subject. Sometimes I also like having my subject interact more with the location, but in the case of this photo shoot, I wanted to go for a more dramatic look to the photos, especially because of the bold, vibrant colors we're using. So I kept the entire shoot where Yasmin is not interacting with the location at all for this one. When your subject is just standing independently within the frame, it can feel more cinematic compared to a lifestyle photo, which is not what I wanted to go for here. As always, I also have to mention color theory as that's really working for us during this session. If you ever feel like your images are not quite working for some reason, sometimes it's not the light or the posing or the location, it's actually the color palette you're using. The easiest way to start tying your photos together with colors is by using both the colors of the location and the outfit your subject's wearing. So in this case, red and green sit opposite each other on the color wheel, so they naturally create contrast. Not to mention, both the red dress and the green location are very vibrant, which helps add to that contrast effect compared to if I decided to go for more pastel tones, like in this photo shoot, for example, where I used a pink outfit against a green location and then toned down the vibrancy of everything a bit in post. You can see what a huge difference that makes in the final photos. Tip number 5 are 2 compositions that I'm using in this location. The first one I tend to use more when I'm doing travel and landscape photography, but it works for portraits too sometimes, and that is the rule of 3. This is where the idea that an uneven number of subjects or elements always looks more appealing in a photo. When you have an even number of elements, like 2 trees for example, your brain naturally wants to pair them up, which can make the image feel a bit static. But an uneven number creates more visual interest, so it forces your eye to move across the frame rather than just getting stuck. Out here in this location, I'm applying this by framing Yasmin in between these 2 tree trunks. Because Yasmin is the 3rd element, she naturally becomes the focal point that breaks up the symmetry of the 2 trees. So the 3 elements all together work really well to create a balanced but interesting photo. Aside from the rule of 3, just like in our first location, I'm also making use of depth by making sure Yasmin is a good distance away from the 2 trees so they can be out of focus in the background. This way, instead of your photo feeling flat, which would happen if your subject and background are on the same plane of focus, you get this sense of space. Speaking of getting the most out of a photo shoot, today's video is sponsored by me. I have a natural light online workshop with all brand new footage that I filmed, walking you through a live photo shoot during every lighting situation to show you how to get the best results, even when you have to work through harsh midday sun. I'll leave a link down below if you want to check it out. Composition tip number 6 is natural framing.
And then I was thinking it'd be cool if you wanted to maybe stand here, you could kind of like lean your hand up on the tree. Yeah. It's so hard to move around with these massive roots. All right, this is a full body shot to start with.
I love natural framing and I am always on the lookout for it in all of my locations because I think it can give you such a stunning look to your photos. In the previous photos, the natural framing was much more obvious where you have the tree trunk surrounding the subject. The next one is slightly less obvious where the tree trunk only wraps around half of the photo, but with that curve, it is still framing my subject and helps bring attention to them. Before we get to my last tip, let's talk about the gear a little bit. So I'm using the Sony a7 IV for this photo shoot with the Sigma 35mm f1.2. This is the Mark I version, which I own. I unfortunately don't really use it that often as the autofocus performance is not as strong as I would like, and because of that, it makes me not want to carry such a big and heavy lens around. I would love to test out the Mark II version, so please let me know in the comments if you'd like to see a review from me, and let me know what your thoughts are if you've used it. I would also love to see Sony release a 35mm f1.2 GM at some point. That would be such a fun lens to have in my kit.
I love this spot. It's so cool.
For the last composition tip and the few photos that we're taking, I wanted to say that it's important to look out for these compositions in your locations to help improve your photography and take more standout images, but it's important to not always use these compositions so literally.
Do you want to maybe stand like kind of like you're walking? Yeah. And maybe we can do some even, just like kind of looking away as well.
I've always been the kind of photographer who loves embracing imperfections in photos because I think it adds more charm and character to them. So sometimes utilizing these compositions in a literal way can make the photo look almost too perfect that something feels off about it. While taking these full body shots, I am still making use of both the rule of odds as we have 2 trees plus Yasmin in the frame. However, this time, instead of the trees being perfectly even in the frame, one of them is almost cropped out and the other is closer to the center of the frame. I'm also still making use of natural framing, but this time, instead of the framing being super perfect and obvious, it's framing her with that sweeping motion of the branch right behind her. It's just not framed perfectly around her head like the other shots, but it's still doing the same thing. So let me know which one was your favorite photo in the comments, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all next time. Bye.